Good evening. I'm Jim Lehrer in Washington.
And I'm Robert MacNeil in New York. After the news summary this Friday, we assess the presidential battleground following the Republican convention. We have excerpts from Clinton and Bush speeches today, the views of Democratic Chairman Ron Brown and Bush Quayle campaign manager Fred Malek, the NewsHour's panel of editors around the country, joined by our analysts David Gergen and Mark Shields. And we close with a report updating the situation in Somalia.
Funding for the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by PepsiCo. PepsiCo. Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the NewsHour is also provided by AT&T. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and viewers like you.
President Bush and Governor Clinton joined the battle in earnest today. Each, accompanied by his running mate, went hard after the other in campaign speeches. Mr. Bush and Vice President Quayle went from their Houston convention renominations on a swing through the South. Last night in his acceptance speech, Mr. Bush promised an across-the-board tax cut while charging Governor Clinton with wanting to raise taxes. The president said it again at a rally this morning in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Creating jobs is the #1 issue, and my opponent has laid out his plan. It is clear, present, and dangerous. It starts, here's the way it starts out. $220 billion in new what he calls investment, and when he says investment, watch out for your wallet. Investing $220 million of your money, $220 billion of your money. That is not investment. And it goes on with the largest tax increase in history, right up front. Right up front, before he's had to govern it all, he says, tax them $150 billion more. No, we are not going to have that.
Governor Clinton fired right back at the president. He and his running mate, Senator Gore, started another bus trip in Cleveland. The Democratic nominees accused Mr. Bush of trying to buy the election with a tax cut proposal. Earlier, in a speech to the Detroit Economic Club, Clinton said the proposal was as empty as the president's no new taxes pledge of the last campaign.
4 years ago, we heard a candidate for president promise us in these 4 years 15 million jobs, a balanced budget, never to raise taxes no matter what. Last night, we heard that same candidate, desperate for re-election, promise another short-term capital gains cut for the wealthy, the fool's goal of an across-the-board tax cut in the face of a $400 billion deficit, and a balanced budget amendment with no serious specific proposals to balance the budget. These promises, too, are false, and they, too, will betray us if we follow them.
We'll have much more on all of this right after the news summary. Robin?
The U.S. today began its airlift of food to drought and war-ravaged Somalia. Flights are landing in Kenya, and supplies are being trucked across the border. The U.S. operation will ferry 145,000 tons of aid to some of the estimated 1.5 million Somalis threatened with starvation. Most of the U.S. aid will be distributed to refugee camps near the Kenyan border. We'll have more on that story later in the program.
At least 6 people were killed today by heavy shelling in Bosnia's capital. It followed a night of the heaviest sustained bombardment of Sarajevo in weeks. We have a report by Paul Davies of Independent Television News.
It was a lethal night, even by Sarajevo standards. As light faded, Serbian artillery in the mountains began their bombardment of the city. The heavy guns seen firing from hilltops to the right of the picture. Sarajevo's Muslim defenders replied, hitting one of the artillery positions. The battle continued for more than 3 hours, with the Serbian guns inflicting more damage on the city center near the presidential offices. Shells were also falling around the Marshal Tito barracks, where Ukrainian soldiers serving in the United Nations force are billeted. Several of the UN vehicles were destroyed. With the barracks ablaze, the soldiers were forced to take shelter in their bunkers, powerless to intervene. This morning, they emerged to inspect the damage. 8 of the transport vehicles used to deliver food and medicine to Sarajevo's needy had been destroyed. The Ukrainians' barracks had also been damaged by the shelling. Incredibly, no one was killed.
The United Nations has accepted an Iraqi offer to inspect the conditions of its Shiite Muslim population. The United States, Britain, and France have accused Iraq of repeatedly attacking dissident Shiites in southern Iraq. An Iraqi official said today UN visits will disprove such allegations.
Firefighters in Northern California made some progress today, but fires continued to burn and spread. One blaze reduced the town of Round Mountain to rubble. About 60 homes were damaged or destroyed, but no injuries reported. That fire now covers 12,000 acres. In Calaveras County, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, damp weather helped fire crews contain a 6-day-old blaze, which has burned nearly 18,000 acres. Governor Pete Wilson arrived there today and declared the county an emergency relief area, clearing the way for state and federal aid. Stocks on Wall Street fell sharply today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed down more than 50 points on news that the dollar had hit a record low against the German mark. That's our summary of the news. Now, Bill Clinton and George Bush speeches, party leaders, regional editors, and Gergen and Shields, plus an update on Somalia. Presidential politics is our lead focus tonight as we survey the battleground following the Republican convention. We'll hear from the Bush Quayle campaign manager and the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, but first this look at the 2 presidential nominees as they hit the campaign trail today. Democrat Bill Clinton was campaigning in Michigan and Ohio. In a speech before the Detroit Economic Club, Clinton had this reaction to President Bush's acceptance speech.
The test of family values is not whether Al Gore and I love our wives and our children as much as George Bush and Dan Quayle do, but whether we get up every day worrying about your children and your future. Last night proved something else. George Bush is a lot more interested in beating me than helping you. He couldn't say anything about his economic record, so he just says anything to stay in power. 3 years and 7 months into the presidency, he still has no agenda, no vision, no strategy, nothing to say about creating jobs in America. And in the last 4 years, since he gave an acceptance speech without a plan, but full of promises and gimmicks, we've lost 1 million manufacturing jobs. Wages have fallen further behind our major competitors, and just this week, as I said, a record number of Americans filed for unemployment. 3 times as many Americans have filed for bankruptcy as have gotten new jobs since the Bush administration began. But again last night, there was no plan to create jobs or raise incomes, just more cynical, read-my-lips promises. For the first time in American history, more people are working in government than in manufacturing since this administration took office. Now we have more government bureaucrats the president deplores than the factory workers he ignores. Across the country, people are eager for real answers about how we can create new jobs and save existing jobs. But the promises Mr. Bush made last night are intended to only save one job, his. Last night he said some things about my record that he knew when he said them were not true. Read the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Bush says I proposed the largest tax increase in history. The Journal told the truth. It's 1/3 the size of the one he already signed. Mr. Bush says I want to tax everybody with a job. The Journal told the truth. The richest 2% of Americans would be asked to pay their fair share because their tax burdens went down in the 1980s. And there would be some modest tax relief to middle-class Americans who are overburdened, especially those raising their children. Mr. Bush says I raised taxes in Arkansas 128 times in 12 years, and he just raised them once, the Journal told the truth when it said that attack is inaccurate. By Mr. Bush's own standard, he's raised taxes 78 times in 3 years, and Arkansas still has the second lowest state and local tax burden in the United States of America. How can you trust someone who's a Republican and won't even honor what the Wall Street Journal says is the truth?
President Bush left Houston this morning and flew to Mississippi for his first official campaign appearance. At a rally in Gulfport, the president repeated many of the same themes that he addressed in his acceptance speech.
This is, as I say, our first step out of Houston onto the election, and I am delighted to be back here in this place which has sound family values, great traditions, and believes in a strong America. And my opponent, we all agree, seems to like to compare himself to Elvis Presley. Well, my apologies to the king, but to me, Governor of Arkansas's plan really does sound like Elvis economics, because the time he is finished, American workers will all be checking in to the Heartbreak Hotel. And I think we ought to treat those Clinton-Gore ideas the way Elvis would. Return to sender. Return them to Arkansas. Send them back to Arkansas and Tennessee. The gridlock Democratic Congress has blocked my jobs program, blocked my education program, and blocked the progress of the people of Gulfport, Mississippi. They are caught in the knot of tax and perks and privileges and paralysis. And let me give you one example. It took us, with the help of many sons and daughters of Mississippi, 43 days to win the Gulf War, while Congress has taken 533 days and still counting to give us a national energy policy to cut our dependence on foreign oil. That is gridlock. That is congressional gridlock. As I said, I've ridden stationary bikes that can move faster than the U.S. Congress. And let me make no mistake about it, we are not going to let the Clinton-Gore ticket fool the American people. The Clinton-Gore ticket and the gridlock Congress are totally interlocked. One is CG and the other is GC. Clinton-Gore, gridlock Congress, but don't let them try to separate themselves. For 9 months, the governor of Arkansas has been distorting my record, and I don't care what the polls say. I'm going to take this case to the American people like Truman did. Go against the Congress, go against the opponent, say what I'm for, and God bless the United States of America. We are going to win this race.
We continue the dialogue now with the chairman of the Democratic Party, Ron Brown, and Fred Malek, the Bush Quayle campaign manager. Mr. Brown, was today pretty much what every day is going to be like between now and November the 3rd?
I sure hope not, but it certainly looks like it. George Bush told us a couple of months ago that he was going to do anything it took to be reelected president. Last night we saw clearly that he will say anything that he thinks he needs to say to be reelected president, whether it's true or not.
Well, true. Governor Clinton also today accused the president, we just heard him, of saying things that were not true, in effect calling the president a liar. What do you all mean? What did he say last night that was a lie?
Well, he totally distorted records. He said things that he knew were false. He cited things that were just totally inaccurate. Bill Clinton pointed out that there have been all kinds of journalists to do an analysis of both the economic plan and policy of Bill Clinton and the whole situation on taxes. Bill Clinton says, let's give middle-class Americans a tax break. They're the ones who deserve it. Yes, let's put a bigger tax burden on the top 2% who got all the breaks during the Reagan and Bush years. Here we are in the 11th hour of the 12th year of first a Reagan-Bush administration and now a Bush-Quayle administration with still no plan for the future. Still no plan or strategy about how to get us out of this economic mess. We've been in a recession for over 20 months. George Bush at first denied that it ever existed, and we still, even as of today, have no plan of attack to put Americans back to work.
Mr. Malik, what's going on here? The President of the United States says that Governor Clinton is proposing a certain thing. Governor Clinton, now Mr. Brown, say that is not so. It's not.